Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down to Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash, Sister Euphemia of the Five Wounds McManus.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all that information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and are recording this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
So, Gene, you know that we're very proud of our family of Shatters around the globe. We have a lot of support in the United States, Australia, Europe, but no country is stronger than our British contingency. And that's where tonight's commission comes from. One of our British listeners, Kevin B., asked us to go back to 1990 and review the British comedy starring Eric Idle, Nuns on the Run.
Well, and Kev wrote in and said, Dear Shat Crew, massive thanks for agreeing to commission this comedy masterstroke, mid-pandemic, throughout which you continue to make us all laugh. Thank you so much. As I write this in March 2022, Europe is at war, so I must also call out our solidarity with Ukraine. Now to the important stuff, movies. It is nothing short of brilliance that we will now together experience the hidden gem of the 90s, the British comedy, the seminal Nuns on the Run. Reviewing the 80s and 90s catalog provided, there arose a distinct lack of films about nunneries. In particular, films with nunneries and gangsters, and how much can happen in just 24 hours when the two are forced to combine. Sadly, Kiefer Sutherland was unavailable to comment. You're the experts, so I just have to have a few observations. Mobster bosses do get manicures. Robbie Coltrane proves white men can jump. You can explain the Trinity in 60 seconds, and shipping Sodbury is a real place. Really. The chemistry between Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane is glorious. The music gives the 90-minute movie the pace and urgency it deserves, and as a comedy, it is deservedly all the more absurd. Gene and Big D get the steamy shower scene, Ash gets the girls' college party, and we all get a decent soundtrack. I hope this comedy surprises you all. Best, Kev.
This is one of those commissions where I feel like the commissioner doesn't know us. Like, I'm feeling we're going to disappoint him.
Yeah. I just love I wasn't even going to comment on it until Kev did the soundtrack. That's not even something I was going to mention on the pod, but in my personal notes, I wrote down that every early 90s soundtrack, it just must have been such an optimistic time in America, right? Or I guess around the world, even in the UK, where it's like everything just sounds like, I don't know, like a crocodile on cocaine wrote the song. It's
it really does.
Yeah.
Really. And like, what's that? I think it's called Mellow Yellow or something. The song was in Ferris Bueller. That bump, bump, bump. They have like a version of that with Hallelujah in the background. So this movie it's one of a kind.
I just love that Kev, for some reason, must have never listened to the podcast if he thinks that I get the girls' college party. I mean, I don't know why that one's reached out to me. I'll take the steamy shower scene, too. I was going
to say, yeah, he had us dead to rights in the shower scene. Well, Kev, Nuns on the Run is a 1990 British comedy starring Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane and filmed in Chiswick, White City, and King's Cross. The film received mixed reviews from critics and was criticized in the United States for its lack of depth and excessive use of nuns for humor. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a 43% rating based on reviews from 21 critics. Roger Ebert asked, why do filmmakers so often insist that nuns are funny? Nuns on the Run isn't available for streaming, but it has been issued and reissued on DVD, including, big deal, like to know this, one release in a double box set with Time Bandits in 2006. So we always ask where you were and what your memories are of the movie we're covering. Tonight, it is Nuns on the Run. Big D, we'll start with you.
So this was, I think, the year before I graduated high school. And needless to say, movies featuring nunneries and mobsters were not one of my big draws to the theater. And this movie, I really do. I hope that I do not turn our commissioners off. Kev, I love you. I really do. But you saying like the chemistry between Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane, it was glorious. I don't agree. I would have rather sat down for an afternoon of Just One of the Guys, Mrs. Doubtfire, Mulan, and then just topped off with something like a palate cleanser of Tootsie. That would have been my cross-dressing choice, but I'd never seen this movie before, and this will be the last time I do see it.
I've never heard of Tootsie described as a palate cleanser. That's what I love, that you're setting the bar super fucking low from the start. That Tootsie is the palate cleanser for this one.
This is the second time this week that I talked about Nuns on the Run, and the person I was talking to brought up Tootsie. But yeah, palate cleanser, I don't know. I didn't like Sister Act. I was freaked out by Bad Lieutenant, so I never saw Nuns on the Run. Not a big fan of, I guess, nun-themed movies. And I'm also... I've got to say, and I know I'm going to disappoint a lot of our listeners, I'm not a big Monty Python fan. It's not funny. But I do like Harry Potter movies. So I was excited to see Robbie Coltrane in a comedy, and also just expecting as an English comedy that it was going to be one of those, sleepers, one of those gems that we've been discovering lately. We'll see.
Wow, Monty Python's great. But aside from that, I didn't ever see this. This is the first time I've ever seen this movie. And on the last podcast, on our Full Metal Jacket podcast, I talked about my roving fear of having my head half shaved to show my tiny ear. And I have another phobia that is a part of, I guess, coming out on this pod, is that I've been afraid of nuns my entire life. I think growing up in a super Catholic city and not being Catholic, there was always this thing where like I didn't get the rituals. I didn't get the costumes that they wore. And so nuns are all covered up, and they just seemed really scary to me when I was a little girl. That kind of like transferred on throughout the entirety of my adulthood. And so I kind of avoided movies about nuns. And then you add to that my husband's grandmother had a very fancy funeral, and they had these nuns shipped in from this special order in Italy. And it was this really big honor. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this will be cool. And then they come down the aisle in like scarlet red robes and like black lace veils, looking like they're coming to like suck the blood out of all of the small children in the church. And it was really frightening again. So nuns, not really a big fan of. I watched this one for the pod though, and I have to say, while I was not afraid of the nuns in this movie, I don't know if I would ever watch this movie again.
From all my Catholic school friends, nuns were to be feared. Like the ruler on the knuckles and getting like beaten in the office. I think it was a legit fear. This isn't like an unfounded fear of clowns. Nuns were dangerous. Nuns could hurt you.
I love that you just completely and totally alienated all of our chlorophobia, listeners out there. And clowns are pretty fucking scary too, guys.
Yeah, unfounded was a strange word to throw into that sentence. Without further ado, let's hit the trailer.
Brian and Charlie were a couple of average, hard-working gangsters.
Hit the dick when you're dead!
You shot Louis, you twerp!
Who'd had enough.
I really hate this bank job.
No insurance?
No job security.
You want to work for somebody else?
No.
You know what we ought to do? Is steal the money for ourselves.
Brian, they're gonna kill you!
Let go of me! I'm trying to commit a major crime!
Now.
Hold it!
Are you off your trolley?
Throw them bags over here.
They'll need more than divine inspiration.
We're out of gas! You stupid dummy!
They'll need a miracle.
What is this place?
We'll never get to the airport. The place will be crawling with cops. What are we going to do?
And what is your name?
Sister Inviolata of the Immaculate Conception.
And yours?
Sister Euphemia of the Five Wounds.
5 wounds for short.
They're nuns undercover.
How do I look?
Do nuns usually wear makeup?
It's our day off.
Nuns in luck.
We run a teacher training college for 18 to 22-year-old girls. You have experience.
Of 18-year-old girls, yes, plenty.
Nuns in hot water.
We all share bathrooms and showers, of course. We don't tolerate nudity in any shape or form, especially our shape.
Nuns out of bounds.
Oh, we just love exercise.
And nuns off their rockers.
Got any booze?
But most of all,
I want Brian and Charlie.
Wait!
they're nuns on the run.
From now on, it's every nun for himself.
Eric Idle.
You'll never get away with this.
Robbie Coltrane.
This is our only chance to go straight. You call this going straight?
Nuns on the Run. The story of an immaculate deception.
After their boss is killed during a bank robbery, Brian Hope, played by Eric Idle, and Charlie McManus, played by Robbie Coltrane, want to stop working for their new boss, Casey, and move to Brazil. While planning to rob a local triad gang, Brian meets and falls in love with a waitress, Faith. During a robbery, Brian and Charlie betray their fellow gangsters, Abbott and Morley, steal the money, and flee, but they're forced to abandon their car. Faith, who had tried to warn Brian beforehand, is shot in the arm, while one of the triads is shot and hospitalized. In response, Casey places a bounty on Brian and Charlie's heads. So 1987, 1989, 1990, that era, fantastic English comedies coming out. But any English comedy in this era not starring Richard E. Grant can fuck right off. Like, he did another Handmade Films production. Handmade Films is the company that did Nuns on the Run. In 87, it was called With Nail and I. And if you haven't seen it, see that. Fuck, commission it. That set the bar for what an English comedy should be. And Eric Idle is no Richard E. Grant. He's a star from Monty Python, and he's trying to do that Monty Python thing. He's trying to do that like clever English wordplay and scenes and like diners and adorable tiny cars. Very English, right? But he's just not that good. And I kept feeling the movie kind of jabbing me in the ribs and pleading for a chuckle, like, wordplay, right? No, wrong.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I don't at the same time. Because here's the deal. I like Idol because I am a really big Monty Python fan. So every time I see any of the crew of Monty Python, I get really excited. But the thing I will give you credit for is that actors like Idol, they're only good with their troupe around them. They're good in those sketches and in those skits. Because every time I see his face, I want to talk about like, bring out your dead, and the character he plays on like the Holy Grail, and and also in that same movie, Robin Not So Brave. Like, he's funny when he's with his troupe. He's funny when he's in sketch comedy, and a lot of comedians can't cross over from that. It's the same thing with like SNL actors, or same thing with like Mad TV actors. Like, some of them, like Jim Carrey, he can totally cross over from In Living Color and do full movies. Other ones, like that guy that looks like a clown that's now married to Scarlett Johansson, like he's only funny in skits. So, I mean, that's fine.
Big D, you're curiously silent on the Monty Python thing. Like, I feel like you're just trying to hide behind some cover, not take any hits on this one.
No, I'm trying to decipher what our friends across the pond think is funny. We share a language, but they can be very different, right? So we did Full Monty. Some of the stuff they love, and I don't get it. So I'm trying to dissect it. They seem to like repetitive gags, some slapstick, some physical humor. The absence of a plot doesn't seem to bother them as long as they get some sight gags. So Monty Python, my experience is limited. So I mean, other than the Holy Grail or the Meaning of Life, I could take it or leave it. But as this movie's going, I'm like, okay, let me see if some of my preconceptions stand fast. And yes, okay, we're going to meet the waitress, Faith. Oh no, she's lost her glasses. She can't see anything. Let's milk it. She walks up to Brian. Can't see you. Let's get closer. She stumbles away. She hits the wall. She spills the coffee. I thought, okay, stupid gag's over. This is it. We're going to move on. No, this isn't it. This isn't it. In Shat history, okay, we have a history of some of the longest running gags. This one takes the cake. Faith milks this vision joke over and over again. She walks into an intersection, a bike flips over, she hits the pole, a car crashes, she keeps walking. Later, when a member of the triad, spoiler alert, tells her you should have a white cane, she replies, I can see perfectly fine, thank you very much. The process is repetitive. She keeps walking, and I was just begging for the next scenes.
Yeah, it reminded me of that montage in The Office, the American version of The Office, where Michael Scott goes to improv class and they all get on to him because every time he ends a scene with, stick it up, I'm going to steal all your money. It doesn't matter if it's like, I got a pizza being delivered or I'm having a baby, stick it up, I'm going to take your money. And he just doesn't know what else to do. And it's like this actress is the same thing. It's like they said, okay, improv here. Let's get something. Because a lot of Monty Python is improv, right? So like I could see them on set being like, hey, let's get, your clever wordplay per se, Gene, right? And they're trying to do that. And she didn't know what to do other than stick with the prop she was given.
Her performance and what they gave her to do was so poor that I thought there was a secondary joke coming up, right? Like I was waiting for the movie to throw us for a loop. Like maybe Faith, because she does finally get her glasses, she puts them on and looks at Brian and goes, oh. And I thought she would just leave, right? She sees Brian, she immediately makes an excuse to leave, quits her job, and that's that. We never see her again. That's funny. Like her storyline could have ended in a worthwhile sacrifice to comedy. But instead, as you said, Big D, they drag this shit out for another hour.
But what did Roger Ebert say? There's like a lack of depth. Was that something he said? Something similar? He is so right. We get a montage at minute 14. I had to note it down. It is a dating montage within 14 minutes of a mobster heist movie. We get Faith. She's doing a sleep study. Then all of a sudden, they're out on a date. She's got her new glasses. They're kissing. They're walking past a pond. This is the fastest love montage I've ever seen. Brian later claims that they're only holding hands and kissing, but somehow they have this unbreakable love bond that can drive them for the next 60 minutes. But why?
Yeah, it reminded me of the montage in Naked Gun where we get them falling in love and then we see their dates progress and then they put on the full body condoms for that sex scene. And we realize that the gag here is that it's all in one day, like that they've barely been together, but it makes you feel like they've had years of a relationship. And in that movie, that's the joke. And what I laughed at in this movie wasn't Nuns on the Run, but the cleverness of the Naked Gun mocking scenes like this and movies like this one. And it just made me want to go back and watch Leslie Nielsen over watching these guys.
Yeah, the only thing the Naked Gun was missing in its parody was that weird like Vaseline lens that they use whenever like there's a romantic scene in this movie. I don't know. Well, disguising themselves as nuns, Brian and Charlie introduce themselves to the Sister Superior, Liz, as Sisters Inviolata and Euphemia, respectively. Faith, having witnessed the gunfight and Brian and Charlie fleeing into the nunnery, follows them and poses as a mature student to get inside. Her gunshot wound is exposed and she is taken to the infirmary. Brian pays her a secret visit and claims he is married in order to end their relationship for her safety.
So I said at the start that I've avoided nun movies, but because I was a child of the 90s, I did actually go and see Sister Act and Sister Act 2, and I didn't hate either of them. Now, I don't know if this is sacrilege or not to other 90s people out there, but I much prefer 2 to number 1, and I'll stand by that. Fight me if you want. But I do enjoy Whoopi Goldberg in that movie, and of course, Lauryn Hill and the whole, like, what have you done for him lately? Like, that whole scene is really great. But I had no idea that that movie ripped off its plot from another movie. And it is a lesser film, but I'm watching this and then they hide out in the nunnery. They're getting into their habits. And I went, oh, okay. So this is Sister Act, because the only difference is that Goldberg witnessed a murder and is in witness protection. And these guys are like not clever bank robbers. But in the end, it's the exact same fucking plot.
Yeah, I'm not going to stand here and tell you guys that Sister Act is a rip-roaring good time. But Whoopi Goldberg was measurably more enjoyable to watch on screen than these two. Here's a weird coincidence, though. Whoopi Goldberg and Robbie Coltrane were both 37 years old when they made their respective nun comedies. And in Sister Act, Whoopi Goldberg stars alongside Maggie Smith, who played Minerva McGonagall in the Harry Potter series alongside Robbie Coltrane.
Wow.
gets weirder. And if you add the letters in Whoopi and Rob together, you get 9 letters.
Oh my God.
And if you add 9 to the year Nuns on the Run came out, you get 1999, the year that Hallmark Entertainment released its production of Alice in Wonderland, which starred both Robbie Coltrane and Whoopi Goldberg and led to Emmy Awards for what? Best costume design and best makeup, which is what they're doing on screen here.
Oh my God, it's like an Illuminati connection.
It is. And Kevin B., this is where your money goes to. Hard-hitting research. It doesn't come cheap. I want to know who Gene had to grease those palms to get that info. But Gene, thank you. I'm glad that you and Ash are so up on your nun comedies.
Well, Sarah was putting up a sunshade and weeding today. And my only excuse to not do that was I'm doing my notes. So I did my notes.
Wow. Well, we've hinted this is a mobster movie. I think maybe we should get to the mobster components. And Brian and Charlie, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Ash, but they make Sam and Eddie in The Safe Men look like criminal geniuses. Those two buffoons were the biggest idiots I thought I could have ever seen. But Brian and Charlie, they're just not good at their job. Who runs out of gas in the getaway car? Brian gets physically beaten by a waitress with bad eyesight. Like, he's trying to defend himself, but it doesn't work. Instead of trying to escape, right? They have the cases with £1 million. They could get away. What do? No, they just decide to hang out directly next to where a bombing and the police scene is. Do they take all this cash and put it into maybe a nondescript duffel bag? No, let's keep it in the 2 leather-bound cases that it came in that somebody could be looking for. Do we guard it with our lives? No. We go into the basement of the nunnery and we leave it opened on top of a washing machine as a nun walks by. They're ridiculous. They're bad. They're just not good at their job. And I was wishing the triad would have chopped them up with one of their many knives.
This movie opens with Charlie and Brian talking about how bored they are at their bank job. And then the punchline is that they're bank robbers. And part of that punchline works because these 2 men, these actors, are the least likely mobsters you've ever seen. By this point in the movie, I was so annoyed with them that I totally forgot this movie was about crooks who dress as nuns. I had just forgotten that element of it. I was just like, oh, it's just 2 bumbling idiots, right? And in order for the nun joke to work, you have to be believable criminals. Like, if you had 2 guys that looked like bank robbers, looked like tough ass motherfuckers, and then all of a sudden they're dressed up as nuns, maybe you got a joke there. Mm-hmm. But they look more like nuns than mobsters to begin with.
Yeah, and Gene, you already mentioned it, but Robbie Coltrane obviously in this movie is a massive Harry Potter staple, right? Like, I absolutely love Hagrid. And I'm starting to say that before Harry Potter, I didn't know much about his previous movie catalog. And while I didn't enjoy this movie, it was really fun to see a clean shaven Coltrane, very un-Hagrid like. And he was fairly funny in this. If anybody was funny, Agreed. It was Robbie Coltrane. And I didn't know that Hagrid was funny like that. And at times, he was the only thing that made this movie worth watching. And what I did appreciate is from the start, you can see that he's incredibly charming. You can see he's actually a pretty great actor. And that babyface Hagrid, I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah, Charlie getting into the nun act when he's getting more and more excited about being a nun and he's really, really into it. When he's explaining the Annunciation, it's the first funny moment in the movie and it's a half hour in. And Hagrid, yeah, I mean, he's the only funny performance in this movie. When he's talking about the Trinity and he lights up a cigarette and he's like, here's the pitch. That's fucking great. Eric Idle, on the other hand, he relies too heavily on silly songs, which he doesn't have in this film, right? That was his thing in Monty Python. Yeah. He did the silly songs. You don't have any songs in this. Maybe if they had done Sister Act, they have something.
I think this movie would have been improved with some musical numbers. Rarely do I say that about a British comedy like this, but I think we could have done for some montages.
Yeah, it was songs. This in Grease too.
Yeah.
No, but I was wishing they'd leaned into that. Charlie embracing his religious upbringing and almost having a turn to the good guy. I wish they had stuck with that. I kept thinking, and now this is some big D fanfic, I was thinking they were going to have a turn to the good side. They were going to stay. They were going to donate the money for the drug addict counseling and whatever, and they were going to become a part of the community. That didn't happen, but it would have been funny if they had leaned into that a bit more. But again, I'm going back to my dissection, my forensic report on British comedy. I have found another two things that the British seem to love in their films. They love to tilt the camera a little bit awkwardly because maybe it's dramatic.
Full Metal Jacket.
And then they do a close-up on just random objects. It could be a bucket of popcorn, a hand getting a manicure, a tire being shot, a close-up of a briefcase getting tossed, a Mercedes grill, a police siren like The Naked Gun, a close-up of a hand holding a gun on Faith, a close-up of Charlie and Brian's face as they scream as they're falling out a window, a close-up of the face of Faith's father. To me, besides the lack of any kind of transitions, fades, or wipes, this felt like a high school AV club project. It was pretty bad.
Dude, you're right on the money. I think part of the reason they have so many close-ups is they can't pull off the stunts or effects they need for this screenplay, right? You see the same thing, like you mentioned, in high school AV club or low budget films. And a great example of that is that basketball scene, right? So we talked about White Men Can't Jump, how Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes were believable, right, as basketball players, that you could see them actually playing some basketball. They put the work into it. Here, they got Robbie Coltrane in a basketball scene. He's wowing all these young women, right? He's like, oh, look at me. I'm a nun who can play basketball. It's cringe. And there are ways to avoid it, right? You don't need to do just a close-up on a hand dribbling. That's clearly not him. And then I swear there's a scene where he's spinning the basketball, and that's not even his hand spinning the ball. He's just standing next to some other person's finger that is spinning the ball. There are ways to avoid this. Pick an actor who can play basketball, or remove this scene from the screenplay, or just make the scene less physical. This movie is proof positive of white male mediocrity. These guys, Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane, get to make a movie because they're white men who tell jokes, right? And this, we won't stand for this shit today. No, to hear me out on this.
I am.
2022, you've got people like The Rock. You got people like Tina Fey. You got people who can actually be not boring, not unattractive, not physically inept, and they can do comedy as well, right? We just ask for more these days. I think in 87, maybe this is the best you get.
I just love that out of everyone you could have named. I mean, Tina Fey, I'm here for, but The Rock?
He's funny.
Is he?
Yeah, he's funny.
You guys were just gloating over his performances in Jumanji.
He was funny. I liked him.
Yeah, he was funny in that.
I was, but Gene, next you're going to tell me, you said the spinning of the basketball wasn't him. Are you telling me that fat British actor did not dunk?
Did not just dunked and went 3 feet over the rim. He
was like, I'm talking on top and just slammed it down on the girls. And the girls like, oh, sister, you're so great. Nobody comments on the fact that it looks like 1990 Roseanne Barr.
Yeah, why did he jump like that when he was trying to get the fuck away from the triads?
Yes, get your fat ass up into the second floor window when you're trying to get back into the nunnery. Fat Jordan, he could dunk, but he couldn't get up in a window?
Well, when Faith intends to go to church and confess, Charlie distracts the priest, Father Seamus, while Brian poses as Father Seamus. Faith admits she still loves Brian, but Brian convinces her to keep silent. On her way out, Faith is abducted by the triads and interrogated. She directs them to Casey, and they set her free, but she bumps into a lamppost and ends up in the hospital, where one triad has infiltrated the staff as a cleaner. Brian and Charlie acquire tickets to Brazil, despite Brian's desire to take Faith with them.
So somebody who's new to the nun cross-dressing genre, I'm not as well versed in it as you two. I felt there was some false advertisement in this film. I thought there were going to be nuns who were on the run. This movie does not have any nuns. They're not running. This should be called Nuns Hanging Out. There is less running from the cops and more sitting around talking about the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. There's faith-based hijinks. We're going to get pervy shots in the shower with the girls. They're going to be shooting hoops with the ladies. They're going to be giving us like a gag confessional. Zoinks, you admitted you loved him. They're going to attend a birthday party. This movie, I didn't get it. I expected it to be more running, more evading the cops, but it was just them just kind of hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, though, because, in the nun genre, I guess we're using Sister Act as like the consummate piece here. And in Sister Act, they don't actually go on the run until the last 15 minutes of the movie.
But it's not called Sister Acts on the Run. It's called Sister Acts.
True. I mean,
what did you want, like a marathon?
I wanted them running from the cops. They weren't running. How about nuns hiding? Hiding nuns. That would have been more accurate.
Well,
yeah, it sounds like a real comedy romper there.
It would have been honest, at least.
I mean, like, I get what you're saying, right? But I think the issue here is less that they're not moving, because that could have killed Robbie Coltrane if they ran the whole time. But I think it's true. It's not I'm getting a disdainful look from Gene right now. It's not, I mean, like, it could have. I mean, that wasn't him. He would have had to have a stunt double doing all of his running scenes. But I think that the issue here is that we don't have any real feeling of danger in the entirety of this movie.
No.
And I get that it's a comedy, right? I get that. But they're not playing it slapstick. So I don't get why these guys are so afraid. I don't see why they have to hide out. Like, go hide out at like a Motel 6. You don't have to hide out in a nunnery. And I had more fear for Woody Harrelson's character and White Men Can't Jump and those brothers that are after him. And that is a comedy. And I had more fear for him than I felt here. And that was the problem. It's not just like nuns on the run. It's like nuns that are making up danger.
Yeah, they seem conveniently able to go to like the pharmacy and buy shaving cream and razors, to go out again to get more like base so they could like cover up their blotchy skin. They also go to Faith's apartment. They're not afraid. Why aren't you taking the time to get the cases and go on the run? I think almost they wanted to hang out in the nunnery.
You know, your comedy is really failing when the most exciting thing is that halfway through it, there's some surprise boobs, right? I was literally asking myself halfway through this movie, like, is this better or worse than Yard Work? And this movie is worse than Yard Work, except for those surprise boobs in the shower scene. You know what's coming. He's put in charge of a bunch of teenage girls. So, of course, he's going to want to see their boobs. And listen, those are some great 90s boobs. Like, this movie does not disappoint on the boob factor.
So we've shared before that we all are so like simpatico at this point. We've been recording together for over 2 years. And I know you all so well that I feel like I'm recording with you, like you're in the room with me. And when the boobies came on, and they were nice, they were very perky, I legit said aloud while watching, well, Gene just took off half a wipe because of the boobs, because they were nice. And it was like, all right, it made this movie worth watching. Those were some good, solid, crowd-pleasing titties.
It is impossible for me to give this movie 5 wipes because of those boobs.
I mean, it's like a 0.25 for each tit. Right?
But here's the problem. I was half thinking that the premise of the movie was a subtle jab at British women. The fact that Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane could pass for the average British woman, that nobody would suspect it. But then yet we get this, knockouts. These girls who are going to become nuns, they're stunning. We get not only just breasts, we get full body walking around. They're right in Robbie Coltrane's face. They're moving around. They're giggling. I was half expecting a pillow fight, but I want to know what happens to British women if this is the case. They just fall off the shelf. Like 1920, smoking hot, and then they turn into a female version of Robbie Coltrane.
Well,
I'm just going off of what I saw in film.
Sorry, English women.
That's
what else?
I don't know. I didn't write the film. That's what they're showing us.
No, at this point in the movie, one thing that I recognized is that I didn't realize that there were a lot of things from a movie that I had never even heard of that are kind of big, that a lot of people quoted and probably don't even know that they're quoting it from this movie. But like the spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch. Like, I've heard Catholic friends use that and they think it's really funny. And I thought it was funny. And then the scene where, as we've already talked about, like Coltrane explaining the Holy Trinity. I've seen that clip before, but I think I thought it was a skit. Like, it was like a skit for a show like SNL. But those parts are funny, and the delivery of those parts are great. And especially where you got Coltrane, where, Idol says, like, does anybody believe it? And he says, well, of course not. That's why you call it a religion. If it was believable, it wouldn't be one. Like, that's funny. And I think the problem and the disappointment I have here is that this could have been a really funny movie. They had some pieces that were pretty good, but in those moments, they immediately go back to like this dither that this film is kind of playing in that's completely non-interesting. The good things are too few and far between, much like the surprise boobs. Like, those came out of nowhere and it was like, oh, and they're like, oh, as the movie continued on.
Yeah, I was wondering while watching it, like, is it because I'm not Catholic or not a part of the Anglican Church or something that the movie is not particularly funny to me? Like, is it funnier if you have a deeper knowledge of nuns? I felt like there were jokes I simply wouldn't get being American and an atheist. I know, Ash, you're much closer to the source material, but are there inside jokes there that I was just not getting?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because the question I also kept asking throughout this movie is like, is this film being irreverent? Like, is that the humor they're going for? Because I was confused by the tone of it, because I couldn't figure out if this is a movie that you have people being irreverent about nuns, irreverent about religion, or is it a movie where we're just like goofing off? And apparently I'm not the only one who thought that, because I read a review from Roger Ebert, whoever the fuck that guy is, while prepping for this podcast, and he talked about how he wished that they had made a decision. Like, they could have gone super irreverent, like, I don't know, a Dogma, or they could have just made a goofy slapstick comedy movie like A Naked Gun. And instead, it feels like you just got a bunch of like teenage boys kind of like giggling in the back of a Catholic school class, making fun of nuns, but not with jokes that are overtly interesting. And I think if the movie had gone all the way and like pushed more boundaries, that would have been funnier. And you say I'm close to the source material, but I don't know shit about Catholicism other than the fact that you stand up and sit down a lot. And whenever I would go with friends, I would drink wine. That's all I know about it. And for me, it would have been funnier if they had made fun of the parts that everybody knows about, like Dogma does. Not that Dogma's a perfect movie, but Dogma at least knows what it is. And it's at least being irreverent in a way. Or, I don't know, it's not a comedy, but Angels in America, right? Like, fuck with the religious part, mess with it in some way, and then it's funny. Instead, you just get two white dudes that are kind of ugly and nun habits.
But I got a question here about like the church. So they catch whatever Sister Mary of the Sacred, the one who's gambling on the horses. She's drinking. She squanders 50 grand of the drug use, whatever that program they were going to do was. They let her stay. They don't want her arrested. She just has to beg for repentance. Is that the way it works in the church? Did you just say, hey, I'm sorry, and they forgive you for everything?
I mean, have you not followed like the molestation stories? I'm sure you've watched a documentary on it.
So you think this happened?
Pretty much just say, I'm sorry, and they move you to a different parish.
Oh my goodness. So they're like, Father Joseph, who are you touching the boys? Yes, I was. Okay, beg forgiveness.
I like
5 Hail Marys and go to the next one.
Every priest must be Catholic.
Yes, I'm from New York. Father O'Leary. What's we got going on here?
He's a leprechaun priest.
He told me to kiss the bishop. I didn't want to, but I did.
Oh wow! Whoa! Slip that one in under the radar.
It just got dark.
Shit.
See, we're more irreverent in this moment than this entire fucking movie was.
Agreed.
That's what this movie was lacking was well, it kind of had borderline pedophilia.
A little bit.
No, they had the one father who liked to touch the nuns. So
he was flirty.
Oh no, he was more than
He's
flirty.
a man, Big D.
He's got needs.
Oh, God.
He's got needs.
Oh,
Big D,
God.
you mentioned that Faith like beats up Brian. They have like a physical fight in the street when she's trying to protect him.
Yep.
After that, he pulls a gun, like right next to her, does a stick up, blows up a car, and they fucking take off. And I was shocked when they showed the backseat of the car and Faith wasn't in there. Like, they left her there. They were just like, fucking peace out, Faith. So he fights her, pulls a gun, blows up a car, ditches her with gangsters in a shootout. Why the fuck does she think he's a good dude? And we talked about this in American Werewolf in London. Is there just something wrong with English women in like the 80s and early 90s where they'll take that kind of abuse and they're just like, oh, I love him?
I mean, don't you mean like wrong with women as they're portrayed in every movie in the 80s and 90s, not just in the UK?
Hold on.
I mean, Tequila Sunrise comes to mind first. Like, why?
No,
why was
I mean,
she
that
with
was
them?
spaghetti, though.
Gene, you're missing the biggest point. She got fucking shot because they abandoned her. You know what? You could forgive that they took off, but I got shot because you left me. That's the point where you break up.
Well, Brian decides to tell Faith the truth, but he discovers she has not returned to the nunnery. They go to her flat and only barely escape from Abbott and Morley. They sneak back into the nunnery where Brian learns that Faith is in the hospital with her father and brother protecting her from the gang. He visits her, but she is heartbroken, believing that Brian no longer loves her. When Brian and Charlie leave the next morning, they are caught and exposed by Sister Mary. In desperation, they steal a utility and drive to the airport, pursued by Sisters Liz and Mary, Morley and Abbott, and eventually Casey and the Triads.
So another big difference between our friends across the pond in the U.S. In the U.S., we like our Fast and the Furious. We get our high-speed chases, our Dodge Chargers, our Toyota Supras, our Nissan 240SXs, our Mazda RX-7, our like crazy muscle cars we're going to get. Nuns in the Run give us a proper British car chase between a gold beige 1981 Volvo 244 with an open sunroof, a 1987 Toyota Helix, and a 1981 Mini 1000 HL Estate Cooper. Not very exciting. It's possibly the most civilized car chase that I've seen. We like it a bit different here in the States, but this was a proper good time.
If this movie did anything, it reset my expectations of the UK. As an Anglophile and a Britpulp cultist, I've always romanticized about life in England, particularly London. But the more and more we see it, like in 80s and early 90s English cinema, the more I've seen that life isn't very pretty on the Thames. You've got cramped homes, tiny cars, ugly clothes, and utterly hideous people other than the naked shower girls and the nurse who gets stripped down to her lingerie.
Wow.
It ain't a pulp video, that's for sure.
No.
Well, Brian forces Charlie to go to the hospital, where Brian tells Faith the truth while Charlie stalls the gangsters. They manage to escape the hospital with Faith, and Casey is arrested. Sisters Liz and Mary find one of the money cases and decide to use it to fund a drug rehabilitation clinic. Sister Liz then leads the nuns in prayer, thanking God for sending them Sisters Euphemia and Inviolata, and asking him to keep an eye on them. Brian, Charlie, and Faith reach the airport and check in, then escape to Brazil, disguised as flight attendants.
So I need us to kind of break down one of the final scenes, because I found myself just openly wondering what I just watched. So now, end of the movie, there's some hospital hijinks. They're trying to sneak Faith out of the hospital with the two cases, the original cases with the money in it. They're both dressed as nuns. You have Faith's father and brother. You have the bad guys plus the triad now who's been beaten with a bedpan. So they're trying to escape the hospital. They subdue two nurses, one of which was way too skinny to put Hagrid in. But whatever. They subdue the nurses. They take the nurses' outfits. We then see them come out. They're escaping. Am I to believe they took the time during this daring escape of the hospital to take off their nun clothes, take the nurses' clothes, and then dress these smoking hot nurses who were wearing some very provocative underwear as nuns and then retie them back up? Did I miss something?
No, I mean, it's an extra gag to just show them dressed as women like one more time. And I don't know, like, I think these ladies' underwear is fine. Like, I think there's this belief that, like, women on the daily wear, like, you know, gross undies and comfortable bras. But, like, I often wear really provocative underwear underneath my clothing because it makes me feel better about myself and, you know, makes me feel good about the day.
I'm shocked by this entire revelation, Ash. I didn't realize that women actually wear stuff like that. I've never, in my 42 years on this planet, gotten someone naked after a shift at work and seen anything more tantalizing.
Nothing
than
like that.
Maybe a thong, maybe some boy shorts.
I mean, like, maybe not the garter belt, right? But like the bra that she has on, I feel like I own that bra in like 4 different shades of black.
The general rule I've always gone with is if you are with someone and you get them undressed and the entire outfit matches, the bra, the panty, whatever it is, they planned on having somebody see that.
That's bullshit. I match my underwear every single day because it drives me nuts to not have my bra and my underwear matching.
And she does not plan on anybody seeing that.
No.
I didn't say that, but
Ash.
But I do it for me. I don't wear sexy underwear for boys. I wear it also for me because it makes me feel good.
So Ash, if you were in the hallway and one of your students like stumbles and accidentally pulls off all of your clothes except for whatever like headdress you're wearing, would you go, "Oh no, hands up"?
Why is it a student stumbling? It's the fucking police.
I know. It's like hands up.
Stripping you down by force.
Yeah. It's a little bit different of a situation. And I also appreciate you putting me in a porno scenario where I have a tearaway outfit that day, because that is something that I don't wear over my sexy lingerie.
Well,
but
you're telling me that wasn't like a rip away NBA jersey right there? That thing came off cleaner than like a...
I want to go back. Like Vanessa and like you're in your lives, like your women don't wear sexy undies.
So Sarah just looks sexy. She doesn't really, I don't know about sexy underwear. I would say that like the underwear she wears is hot, but it doesn't look like that.
Well, you
like,
also like dude underwear on girls.
That's true. That's true.
So it's a little different.
I like underwear with dick holes in them.
Right.
But no, she also like Sarah wears sports bras. She doesn't wear like normal bras. She wears sports bras. And I think it's super hot. So I guess for me, it's hot, but it's not something you would find in a Agent Provocateur catalog.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. But she's wearing it because it makes her feel hot. Like, and that's the point. If sexy lingerie makes you feel hot, cool. If boy shorts make you feel hot, cool. Like, wear whatever you want. But don't assume that, like, these ladies are, like, crazily dressed. Because if I had to wear a fucking nun habit all the time, I'd probably be wearing some pretty provocative shit underneath.
They were nurses. They weren't nuns.
That's true. They were
they're
nurses.
grabbing bedpans. They're like wiping people's sores. They're
remember.
So maybe the best part of your day is your lacy undies.
You're wrong. We're missing the connection. Let's go back to American Werewolf in London. We know how thirsty the English nurses are.
Yeah. She
probably takes some of her patients home and ends up, he disappears, becomes a werewolf, that whole big thing. This could be a British thing.
NHS stands for Nurses Horny.
Hot as shit. Nurses hot as shit.
Yeah.
Damn.
We broke the code.
Nurses have sex. I don't know.
Oh.
With their patients. There's your porn scene. Oh no, I'm a patient who needs my sore wiped. I'm gonna fall weird on this nurse, and I'm gonna pull away all of her scrubs. And look at her sexy undies.
Oopsie.
Oops. I'm gonna hold my hands up so they can see me in them. No, no.
So we've had a recent run of great villains in the movies that we've watched for this podcast. This movie, we haven't gotten to Casey, the villain, the big bad, the mob boss, right? He's the guy that Charlie and Brian are running from. They're afraid to go to prison because they're afraid that his guys on the inside are going to kill them, right? They're willing to hide in a nunnery, give up love, abandon their lives because Casey's after them. This motherfucker looks like Rick Astley. This Rick Astley looking shitbird wants them dead. He can't even stand up to the cops. The first cop he runs into, the cop's like, "Is this your gun?" He's like, "Oh, fuck." I guess he's never going to give up. But I just got to wonder, like, why don't they just whack Casey and run the whole thing themselves? Like, he's not a big threat. None of these guys is scary. Not a single guy in this gang is scary. The triads, they're scary.
He looks like Screech, like Dustin Diamond from Saved by the Bell. I was expecting there was going to be some psychotic scene. They needed to show us early on that he was unstable, have him kill someone, have him hurt someone. Because all he does is show us he's inept. You're right. There's no reason that anyone shouldn't bump him off. I know he's the new crime boss, but there's nothing, like you said. He's not specially skilled. He's not like a good fighter. He's not dangerous. He's not psychotic. He's just silly. But maybe that's enough to intimidate in the UK. I don't know. The hooligans look scarier than these guys. But
but come on, y'all. Like, with this movie, can you imagine if they had a convincing villain? Like, in a way, maybe it would have made it worse.
They could have used Faith's dad or brother.
True.
Both of those guys are scary looking.
I totally agree.
Well, now's the time in the podcast we give our wipe scores for Nuns on the Run. The wipe scores are our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is stealing a car from Stamford Bridge while all the chavs sit around waiting to be spanked by the arsenal. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It is being forced to film a minute-long romantic montage with Eric Idle. Ash, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Nuns on the Run?
So I didn't enjoy this film. As far as nun films go, it's pretty low bar for me. As far as comedies go, it's like significantly low bar for me. I didn't find Idle funny at all. Coltrane, I feel like, gave it his best shot. I love you, Hagrid. I think that you're amazing, but Hagrid even alone couldn't save this movie. It feels long too. And I know this movie wasn't long, but it felt really, really long. And it was silly, but not silly in a fun way. I don't think it's a 5 wipe movie. I don't think it's even a 4.5 wipe movie, but it's in the 4. So I'm going to go with a solid 4 wipe for Nuns on the Run.
Ash, I'm surprised at your generosity here. I can't be that kind. Again, I took a half wipe off for the boobs, but that's about the best I can do. This movie, I agree, it felt very, very long. I feel like with a comedic veteran like Eric Idle and a guy who we've seen can do good work in Robbie Coltrane, who was the highlight of this movie, I just expected better, especially coming from Handmade Films, which, again, 3 years earlier released with Nail and I, which is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. We always talk about wasted potential. This is wasted potential coupled with just a really, really lame premise. 4.5 wipes for me.
So I'm trying to stay consistent lately. So I went back. I was originally going to give it a 4.75. So I went back and said, let me look historically at what I gave a worst score to. What did I say was the worst movies possible? Here are my 5 white movies. Gleaming the Cube, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, King Ralph, 10 Things I Hate About You, Predator 2, Safe Men, Showgirls, Willow, Speed 2, In the Mouth of Madness, Student Bodies. Those are all really, really bad, but I think this movie might be worse. Student Bodies tried to be funny. Mouth of Madness had some moments. I can't defend any part of this movie. It seemed amateurish. So I got to give it the worst score I could. This is 5. This is a 5 wipe movie.
Wow. All right, with 5 wipes from Big D, the worst score possible, 4.5 wipes from me and 4 wipes from Ash. That gives us an average wipe score of 4.5 wipes for Nuns on the Run.
Let me just say one last thing. I would rather watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles than this movie.
In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat. And you know what? I'll go one further. I'd rather watch fucking Red Dawn than watch this movie.
I like it. You're more patriotic. I like it.
Yeah, because I love America. That's why I'd rather watch Red Dawn.
So Gene and Ash with a wipe score of 4.5 wipes. That now ties this in the 256 spot with Fletch Lives, Highlander, Predator 2, and 10 Things I Hate About You. Slightly better than Safe Men and Showgirls. Slightly worse than Time Rider, Drop Dead Fred, and King Ralph.
I stand by the fact that Showgirls is a fucking amazing movie. And if somebody will be willing to do it, I think we need to, the 3 of us, go back to Showgirls, watch it, review it. That movie is so much fun. That movie is hilarious in ways that this movie wishes it could be. And I really like 10 Things I Hate About You. That's a 3 wipe movie.
On Twitter, I recently came upon the hot tub or the pool sex scene where she's gyrating. And all I could hear in my head was Carrie Gross equating that to a shark attack, to like when a shark is eating its victim. I agree with you, Ash. I think that is a better movie than we give credit for.
It's a hilarious movie.
Agreed.
Well, sorry, Kev. We didn't love this movie, but we still love you. And thank you so much for commissioning this film. Big D, let's get to this week's email and voicemail.
So, Jane, we have one email this week from Chuck in Arizona, your home state. And Chuck says, "Hey, Shat Crew, just found the podcast. Love this episode and movie. As I spent 6 years in the Navy as an Ocean Systems Technician, Maintainer, or OTM, from 91 to 97. We process data from undersea hydrophones to shore-based systems. Sound travels incredibly fast and far via water. And as quiet as submarines are, they're really noisy. Our job in existence was highly classified up until the early 90s. Old-timers were astonished at the scene about 30 minutes in where Alec Baldwin says the Navy SOSUS network detected a submarine. We were declassified in the mid-90s. When the movie came on, we'd all cheer at the Navy SOSUS line. And better yet, I live in Arizona, and I have a round wife. But no jackrabbits for dinner. I am a proud wearer of the beach ball, integrated undersea surveillance system insignia. Thanks, Chuck in Arizona."
Well, Chuck, thank you very much. It's nice to know that some of my my fellow service members in the Navy, that you could validate the movie and that you guys enjoyed The Hunt for Red October as much as we did. And please keep listening, and we appreciate you sticking with us.
Yeah, Chuck, last week when we did Full Metal Jacket, we noticed that it kind of came up in the same realm of Shat score as A Hunt for Red October. And I thought, God, did we get that wrong? So it's nice to hear that it is just every bit of quality of movie, and not that somebody who's actually in the Navy would go, no, that movie's actually utter bullshit. So we appreciate you writing in, and Howdy, neighbor.
Gene, we also have a couple voicemails this week. The first one is from Jonathan A., who wants to talk about 3 O'Clock High.
Hey, Shat crew. This is John Andrews calling from Colchester in the United Kingdom. Just want to say how really excited I was at the end of the Lady Hawk podcast to see that you were reviewing one of my favourite films of all time, 3 O'Clock High. And I really enjoyed listening to you all talk about it for a film that I think many people don't even know exists. I personally discovered it in a bargain bin in an HMV video store 20 plus years ago. Looked interesting from the cover, took it home, watched it, absolutely loved it. Soundtrack's great, etc. And I'm in fact about to view it now for about the 50th time. And I know I'll enjoy it again and again and again. One thing that was quite interesting that wasn't mentioned on your podcast is that the Duke, I think it was, I can't remember his exact name now in the movie, but he was played by Mitch Pileggi, who is obviously Walter Skinner from the X-Files, has to be in one of his earliest roles. But the whole cast was brilliant. Really, really enjoyed it. And it was great to hear you guys all discussing it in your usual fun manner. Keep up the great work. I look forward to all of your podcasts, and I listen to them on a, weekly basis whenever I'm running. I run 5 to 10, sometimes 20 kilometers a day. And your podcasts keep me company on every one of those runs. So keep up the great work, guys. And I look forward to the next reviews as they keep coming. Bye.
Big D maybe would have been happier if they cast John in Nuns on the Run. Just been him running in a nun's habit. But no, John, thank you so much for calling in. And Jen, who commissioned 3 O'Clock High, came in and commented on Facebook earlier this week, thanking us again for the work we did on the pod. She said she absolutely loved it. And I had to thank her again for exposing us to it. I think Big D, you had seen it before, but that was a new one to me. And again, just one of those unexpected joys of doing the pod where we get something that we've never seen before and absolutely love it. And then sometimes you get Nuns on the Run.
This was a combination of my two favorite things. One, that we have listeners around the globe, and the fact that we can expose somebody to a new movie. I can't believe somebody sitting in the UK would watch 3 O'Clock High when so many of my friends haven't. But it is fantastic. Thank you for listening. We appreciate the feedback. And we have one more voicemail here. So now I just want to give a moment of warning. There was a time early on in the podcast where we got a butt dial. And it was a listener yelling at his mother that they were out of bread and did she go get peanut butter? Some of our longtime listeners would remember that. But we got another butt dial from 781-249-77. I'm not going to give the last two digits. So whoever you are out there, we got a 2.5-minute butt dial of you doing something. You might want to call us back and explain. That's it for this week, Gene.
All right. Thank you to everyone who sent us voicemails and email. Again, if you want to email us, you can email us host@shatthemovies.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, just go to shatpod.com and use the speak pipe feature. We really appreciate it. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week will be a week of revelations. It's where we get to learn what made Gene Lyons. We were shocked, Ash and I, to learn about the gangland violence that had shaped our humble friend, the Persian American who came here and was a victim of a vicious gangland shooting. So this movie will be perfect as Gene goes back in time and learns about prison, drugs, and gang war as it touches three men in East Los Angeles from the 1970s to the 1990s. Released in 1993, it only made like $4.5 million at the box office, but it was a big impact on Gene's life as he was a victim of this criminal activity from these gangs. What was it? Las Votas Locos? What was it, Gene? Tell us about it.
Yeah, LVL, Las Votas Locos. No, La Victoria
that
Locos.
Flesh wound.
Yeah.
La Victoria Locos.
I can't wait. I hope it doesn't bring back some bad memories, Gene, and that you could actually go through the recording and we don't have to call Kevin Brackett.
Trigger warning.
I don't know that he'll be up for this one.
I think I'll be all right. Well, thank you, Kev, for commissioning Nuns on the Run. And thank you, Paul, for the upcoming film that you've commissioned. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. And thank you to the Twitch audience who attended our first live recording with this one. So depending on how it goes, we're going to meet up and see if we want to do some more of these. But I had a lot of fun. That concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat The Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com, or leave us a voicemail on our SpeakPipe feature at shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. You can find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information at shatpod.com/TV. Wherever our fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next time for the following movie.
In the heart of the city, in the soul of its people, there is a power stronger than law.
I have never been so
Greater than life.
Who are you fighting? You're just fighting yourself!
Oh, those are my carnales, they're my family!
I'm your family!
It's the tie that bound them together in their youth.
Let me see the color inside you.
And now will drive them apart. This is the epic story of three brothers.
Run, carnal, run! Vatos locos forever, carnal, let's go!
One searched for truth in the law.
You kill your own people! No!
One expressed his passion through art.
You'll be completely sold out by the end of the night.
Oh!
And one found power.
You used me. What about all the times you used me?
From the director of An Officer and a Gentleman and the producer of La Bamba. Blood in, blood out.
That's a bond you can never break.
Oh, shit. Sorry, Gene.
Brad.
No, shoot. You see this?
His name's Kevin.
Oh, God, Kevin.
Where
Kevin
the fuck did you get Brad from?
Brad.
It's like Brenda for my mom.
Oh, stop it. So
you interrupted his dinner.
Yes, you did. He called me. I was in the
You
middle
interrupted his dinner. You're the
I
one
interrupted
who
his
said
dinner.
it at 8.
I was having a tasty dish with some chicken rotisserie. It was wonderful. But let's start this over again.